I recently said that the Rocky Mountain Altitude Powerplay was the best e-bike I'd ever ridden. And that still stands, but there's another contender in the ring now, and that's Commencal's MetaPower. Basically, they've got a Meta AM, which is their longer travel enduro bike, and plonked a Shimano motor in the middle of it. And these two things combine to make a really good e-bike. I just got back from Enduro, where the guys at Commencal are based, and rode a pre-production version of the bike. So not everything on the bike is as it necessarily will be when they come to sell it, but it's there or thereabouts. One of the reasons why I liked the Rocky Mountain e-bike was that it had the same geometry as their non-powered one. And this made it poppy, fun, agile to ride, and it made it feel like a normal trail bike. And this is what Commencal have done. Save for a few millimetres here and there, the geometry is very similar to the really successful enduro bike. This means that we've got a nice and long front centre for plenty of stability, matched with a reasonably slack head angle. And at the back, it's not too long, but it's also not too short. You can go too short on trail bikes and enduro bikes, but you can also go way too long, especially with e-bikes. The architecture of the motors means that the rear centre is often a lot longer than you'd see on a normal trail bike. For example, we've seen bikes with chainstays over 460mm long, and this makes them kind of a bit barge-like, a little bit less reactive. But thanks to the more compact nature of the Shimano motor, the chainstays on the Commencal are much shorter, and this is much more standard for a trail bike, especially when paired with a longer front end. As I said in the beginning of the video, this was a pre-production sample, so two of the things that are going to change with this bike is that they're going to increase ground clearance of the pedals by 10mm, and they're going to make the front end a little bit longer. The BB height is being raised by 5mm, and then they're going to spec 5mm shorter cranks. And on testing the bike out in Enduro, I actually think this is a good thing to do. Quite often I like a low BB, it helps with cornering stability, it helps you feel much more planted. But on an e-bike where they're so good at technical climbs and they make those sort of steppy, rocky, rooty things much more enjoyable to do, actually having a little bit extra ground clearance isn't a bad thing. It's still going to be roughly a 12mm BB drop, so that's the bottom bracket's going to be 12mm below the axles, and this is, to be honest, about right for a 160mm bike. Likewise, on the length of the bike, we're rarely going to complain that bike's too long. You'll have seen a lot of our videos in the past where we've talked about mountain bike geometry, and generally speaking, we're kind of big fans of the longer bikes. So adding 10 or 15mm to the front end of the bike, we ain't complaining about that at all. Every time we review an e-bike, it seems that a motor's been changed or upgraded or updated. And currently, I'd probably say that the Shimano motor is leading the way. There's only 3 modes on there. There's an eco, a trail, and a boost mode, but they're all reasonably nicely spaced, and they all work really well. The feeling of the motor is one which is very smooth. The power input feels really natural. So when you're pedaling up, varied terrain, it feels like it matches what you're putting into the pedals really quite nicely. I'd say its strength is probably the low speed, high torque. So slower, more technical things, you get a real nice sort of push through this terrain. Where it lacks perhaps is when you're sort of boosting up a longer fire road towards the top of its speed, it doesn't feel like it's quite as punchy as maybe the Bosch's. But the best thing for me about e-bikes really is the technical loose, rooty climbs, and the Shimano motor works really well here. And Commencal have worked hard and packaged it really nicely into the frame. So you get the steepish seat angle, which puts your hips nicely over the pedals, which helps you put the power into the bike as well. But also the spec choices that they've made really help the bike excel on technical climbs. First off, there's the wheel and tyre package. So the bike I rode had a Magic Mary 2.6 on the front and a Nobby Nick 2.6 on the rear, 27.5 wheel size. I believe the production bike will come with Maxxis tyres, so that would be a 2.5 or 2.6 inch wide trail tyre, probably the Minions. And these currently are my favourite e-bike tyres, so I think this is a good thing. They're mounted onto 35mm internal width rims, so you get plenty of volume and support for those tyres, which is what you need. This means that there's acres of mechanical traction from the tyre, and this is really translated into those loose situations where you can really make the most of the power from the motor. The other spec choice from Commencal that I think is really smart is the use of a coil shock. Often we'll see air shocks and they save a little bit of weight here and there, and you kind of get slightly easier tuning capabilities, especially across a broader range of rider weights. But if you get the spring right on a coil shock, the small bump sensitivity is incredible. There's very little friction in the whole system, so the bike reacts really nicely to those tiny little bumps that can sort of break traction. It weighs a little bit more, but to to be honest, you've got a motor, so it doesn't really matter that much. This is being paired up front with a Lyric RCT3 fork, so this is their top-end Enduro fork from RockShox. It's got a really stiff chassis, 160mm of travel controlled by a Charger 2 damper. So I've talked quite a bit about the bike's climbing characteristics, and as I said, it's pretty good. But downhill is where this bike really excels. The suspension front and back is totally sorted. It's a 4-bar at the back, so it behaves really nicely under braking when you're fully open. It never throws up any surprises there. The fork is controlled and everything you'd want from a top-end Enduro fork. The shape, the geometry is good. It's progressive, it's long, it's slack. So this bike, it absolutely hauls downhill. And we found that with the non-powered one too. The difference though is that you have a load of weight around the bottom bracket and in the down tube. And this means that the suspension works even better, basically. So it's super smooth, it's super confident, but it's also really calm. It's never a bike that feels chattery or too sort of scary, you know. It never feels nervous on the trail. This is the first time I'd ridden a 2.6-inch Magic Mary up front with the Addicts compound, and it blew me away, to be honest. I was a little bit disappointed with the knobby nick that I rode recently on the front. It was too rounded. But the Magic Mary has a stronger shoulder, a more obvious shoulder, so when you're leaning the bike over, it grips nicely, and so you've got a lot of confidence to push that front end into corners. I came away from 1.5 days riding in Andorra really impressed. There's still a lot of time that I'd like to put onto the bike here in the UK on trails that I know myself to really compare it to other bikes I've ridden. But the signs are there that Commencal have taken their Enduro platform and built a really good e-bike out of it. It kind of has everything you need from it. A great motor, a great chassis, good suspension and good components. At the time of filming, we don't yet have full specs and prices for the bikes, but being Commencal, we believe it's going to be really competitive. Once we know, there'll be a full article on BikeRadar and we'll put a link in the video description.